So on May 16th, 1986, yes, I admit that is before I was born, there was a very big, shocking revelation on that ultimate primetime soap opera, Dallas. And on the show Dallas, at the end of the 9th season, one of the main characters, Pam, wakes up from a very long dream. And she gets up because she hears the shower running. And as she walks into the bathroom, she opens the door and she sees her husband, Bobby Ewing, in the shower. And it shocks her. Now, for those who have not seen this, the reason that this is completely shocking is because at the end of the previous season, the character of Bobby Ewing, the good guy of the show, was mowed down by his half-sister-in-law in a rage of jealousy in her car, and he died. So how is he standing in the shower in the morning? Well, it was a complete and utter do-over. You see, the actor who played Bobby Ewing, Patrick Duffy, he decided that he wanted to be done with the show Dallas. He had done it faithfully for 8 years. His contract was up, and so he wanted to try other opportunities in acting. And so he had his character killed off so that he could not be brought back. Well, as most things go, when ratings drop, the producers try to get back one of their stars. And thankfully for the producers, Patrick Duffy was also looking to come back. So they had to figure out this way to bring his character back while not really giving up what had happened in the end of season 8. And they did this by saying that Pam, who was the one who was asleep, had had a very long, horrible nightmare that was all of that season. It was the ultimate trope of the do-over. And so we think about that as we come into today's passage from the book of Revelation. And in this part of the book of Revelation, John, who's been our narrator throughout this story, this vision, is continuing on his tour of the new creation, the new heaven and the new earth, with an angel guiding him. And at this point, the angel brings him to the main street in the new creation, the new heaven, the new earth, and he sees a crystal clear river of life running down through it. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's like if you went up to Lake Michigan on the most beautiful day without a cloud in the sky, and you saw the sun on the lake as it gently rippled. It would look like diamonds. And so they see this river of life snaking its way through the center of the city. And then they see on the side a tree that is the tree of life. This tree produces 12 types of fruit, one for every month of the year. It's biblical shorthand saying that there will never be a lack of food in this new heaven. But it also has on it leaves that will heal the nations. Now, I want you to remember this image, the river of life going down through the center of the city, fertilizing the land, making it so that the tree of life can grow up and produce its fruits. But I also want you to remember this. Revelation is, of course, the last book of the Bible, and the chapter that we're in is the last chapter of Revelation. So keep in mind those images that are in the last chapter of the last book of the Bible, basically the tail end. And now what I want you to do is put on your thinking caps and to go all the way back to the very first book of the Bible, Genesis. And I want you to think about the creation narrative in Genesis, particularly the second one. So not the one on day one, God created the heavens and the earth. but the one that's a little bit more detailed. And I want you to think about that because there are several images, several landscape features that you might find familiar. You see, in the second creation narrative, the person who is writing describes how when God created the earth, first a river flowed up from within inside the earth and it watered the ground, making it fertile. Oh, a river that comes up from the earth and it makes the ground fertile. It makes it life-giving. Sound familiar? And then as the ground is made fertile, God plants all of these trees on the earth, particularly 12 types of food tree. Oh, 12 types of fruit, you say, Pastor. Yeah, 12 types of fruit. And in the Garden of Eden, by this river, he plants two very specific trees. He plants the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Oh, a tree of life, a tree that brings life, not a tree that divides it, not a tree not the tree that would eventually take life from humanity. It's interesting, isn't it, that the Bible is bookended by the same images. It begins and it ends with a river that brings life and with a tree of life. And if you think about it, in God's first creation, everything went haywire with Adam and Eve, and it never ended up the way that God intended it from the beginning. But the book of Revelation is God's ultimate do-over. The book of Revelation shows us that God is going to give us this new creation, this new heaven, this new earth, bring it into being on the earth, and give everything the place it was supposed to have in the first creation. And that's not just the landscapes, it's not just the rivers and the trees, but it's also everything else in creation. And that includes humanity. Each human being is included in God's ultimate do-over. And so if you have any questions about whether or not you are included in this do-over, I invite you to think about all of the ways that God has already included you in his do-over. We live in this period of time in which theologians call it the already but the not yet, the in-betweeny time where we already know that we have been given the promise of life everlasting with God, which was secured through Jesus' death and resurrection. But we have not yet lived in the fulfillment of that promise. We live in this in-between time when God's in the middle of that do-over. And it is during this time that we remember that we are included because we were baptized. We were baptized and washed in the waters that only God can give, the life-changing waters. And it is because we are washed, all of our past sins are washed away. But we are also included in this ultimate do-over day in and day out. We are included even in those times in which we know that our spouse sent us a message saying, "Hey, honey, can you please pick up milk on your way home from work?" And while we really don't want to stop, so when we get home, we tell our spouse, "Oh, no, I didn't get that message." But it's also when we have an argument with our parents, with our children, with our nosy neighbor 2 doors down who doesn't know when to keep her nose out of everybody else's business. We're included in the do-over then. We're included in the do-over whenever we choose to turn in on ourselves, to turn in on our own desires, and away from what God has intended and what our neighbors need. God gives us a fresh slate each and every day. And if you need something to remind yourself of that, I point you to what Martin Luther once said. He said, every time you wash your face, remember your baptism. So every time you wash your face, every time you wash your hands, remember that God has welcomed you into his family, that God gives you a do-over each and every day, and that you are included in the promise of life everlasting with him, that you have a place in this new heaven, in this new earth, in this new creation, and Jesus has made that certain. My friends, this past 5 weeks we've been wondering where the hope and the comfort is in this book of Revelation. And here it is. There is hope, knowing that you have that place with God. And there is comfort in knowing that there is nothing that you can do that would take you out of that place. God has given you the ultimate do-over. And trust me, my friends, it's not a dream.